Hey everyone, and welcome to this stream about preparing for your career in Sweden. Amazing to see so many of you here already. By starting off, I want to just make clear some things that we are not going to be discussing on this live stream. So, we're not going to be discussing migration related issues, and we're not going to be discussing employment service questions. What we are going to talk about, though, is the common challenges facing Swedish job seekers, the importance of networking, how do you do it, and what does it even mean, boosting your CV, communicating your skills in the Swedish market. And with us to do this, we have a guest speaker, Greg Fernando, founder of New to Sweden. He is the job coach for New to Sweden's Ready to Work program. A former recruiter, Greg has also taught similar workshops at Stockholm University and for the region of Stockholm's SFX program. They have helped thousands of newcomers and also works with various companies on diversity initiatives. This session will be in English. Greg will start with a 25-minute presentation, and then we will open up for questions from the chat. So if any questions pop up, please type them in the chat and we will discuss them after the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Greg in.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. How are you today, Greg?
Pretty good. I'm going to just say a few quick things at the start, and then we'll start with an introduction to New to Sweden, as well as introduction to myself, and then I'll start the presentation in full. But thanks a lot, Frederick, for that lovely introduction. And I just want to say as well, so I'll be speaking English throughout, as Frederick said. I tend to speak a little bit fast, so if you feel as if I'm going too fast, just let me know. I understand that English is not the first language for everybody here, so that's absolutely okay. So just let us know in the chat, or even if I'm using words or something that you may not understand, that's okay too. Just don't be shy, just mention it in the chat, and I'll try to rephrase what I'm saying. So thanks everybody for coming today. I'm going to just quickly introduce New to Sweden, which is our organization. So New to Sweden is a nonprofit organization that helps Sweden attract and retain international talent. And we sort of have three main pillars that we work with. So we work with internationals, such as yourself, people with international backgrounds, enter the Swedish labor market, and we do that by training you in free workshops such as these. We also have a Working in Sweden LinkedIn page where we provide free tips every single week. And we also have our website where we have a really nice FAQ. So if you ever want to go check out newtosweden.org, you can, and you can get a lot of information there as well. So that's one pillar that we work with, but we also work with employers, because that's sort of the other half of the battle in Sweden. So we work with employers to make sure that they're ready to hire people with different backgrounds. So in the past 3 years, we've worked with companies like SAP and Nordea and Google and Spotify and Vattenfall. We've given workshops to each of these different companies and more, of course. And our third pillar, and I find this one sort of, I'm most proud of this particular pillar, is to work with the Swedish community. We want to make sure that the Swedish community is going to be welcoming of people, all different kinds of people all over Sweden. So because of that, we launched this 1046 inclusion campaign very recently. And the 1046 stands for the 10.46 million people who live in Sweden. We started planning this campaign like 2 years ago or something like that. So that number has changed, of course. It's now like 10.55, but we still like the name, so we're keeping it. So 10.46 million people living in Sweden. We want to make sure that absolutely everyone in Sweden feels included, no matter your sex, your gender identity or expression, your ethnicity, your religion, any other belief you might have, disability, sexual orientation, neurodiversity, or age. And so we're actually working with a whole bunch of different partners on this project. We just signed up 3 new organizations last week. So I believe now the number is up to 33 or 34 different organizations working closely together on this. And like I said, we're putting out a lot of different information. We're putting out these tips on inclusion. This one's in Swedish, so I don't expect you to understand, but some things like this in English as well. So the whole organization, every single employee needs to be involved. And then we write in depth some more information on how we can all be a little bit more inclusive. And this is really important in Sweden, as we'll talk about in a few slides here. We also created some short films. This one's a really interesting story of Brandon, who came here to Sweden when he was 9 years old, and he came from Uganda to Spånga, a suburb here in the Stockholm area. We have a short film on Anna, who became blind at the age of 24. So she talks about how she was treated before she was blind compared to how she's treated now that she is blind. It's a really interesting story. And then there was my story too. It's about me and my family and how we're raising a family of color here in Sweden and how that is. And it's people tend to like it. I hope you like it too. Go check it out by visiting 1046.se or visiting one of our LinkedIn pages. There'll be some links towards the end of this discussion. So that's it. That's the introduction to our organization. And now I'm going to introduce myself. So my name is Greg, and I am a recruiter from Canada's largest IT staffing agency. I taught job guidance workshops to Stockholm University and also for the region of Stockholm's SFX program. And I've hired, placed, and coached program and project managers, software engineers, analysts, recruiters, accountants, forklift operators, biomolecular scientists, banking executives, and more. And the only reason I like to list this every time is because I just want to tell you that basically all the tips that we're going to be talking about today, all the different tricks and things that we're going to be discussing, it's relevant to you. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be a banking executive. You can also be a forklift operator. You could be a teacher. You could be studying for anything at all. And the stuff we're going to be talking about today is going to be relevant and helpful to you. And I've also conducted over 4,500 interviews and read over 10,000 CVs. So a lot of the tips that I'm going to be giving you is based on things that I've seen in the past, but we've also corroborated a lot of our work with lots of different recruiters. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be telling you today, we've checked with at least 10 other recruiters. So it's really helpful information. All right. So now I'm going to be, I'm really curious to know what worries you the most about finding work in Sweden. So please pop your answers in the chat. I'm going to try to look at them over here and let us know what worries you the most. Let's see, Swedish language. Yeah, that's a big one for sure. That's very concerning. The language barrier, perfect terminology. That's right. We're going to be discussing that very shortly. Language, wow. Okay, how long does it take to get a job? It takes a long time. We'll be discussing that as well. Language and competition, that's right. Everything you do, every time you look for a job, that's a competition amongst other people. Not being able to, whoa, it's going too fast. The Swedish job market, not having enough experience. Yeah, that's a big one for sure, especially as students. We understand that. Ethnicity, very good one. That's true. Networking, work permits, probably the language barrier. These are great. You're obviously thinking about this a lot. We're going to try to address some of these concerns in today's presentation. And then after the presentation's over, as Frederick indicated, we'll have a Q&A. So in case I don't really address any of these things during the presentation, which I hope I do, please feel free to ask me a question at the end, and I'll try to answer that as best I can. So keeping that in mind, we'll go through the common challenges to finding work in Sweden. Some of you mentioned this first one right off the bat, language barriers. You're 100% correct. You're coming to this country with pretty much zero knowledge of Sweden, unless you were super lucky and got to train on that language before you came here. So it's learning a language from scratch, and it's very, very difficult, as we all know, to do. And the other thing to keep in mind too is that lots of jobs are only available in Swedish. There's no proper number on this. We have to guess based on, different job applications that we see, but it's pretty much at least a 70 to 30 split. 70% of jobs probably require Swedish to a significant degree. 30% of jobs hopefully do not. And working at an international company, you get to speak English and you can get away with that language. But still, there's still that language barrier of trying to learn Swedish. That's a natural barrier that exists. The other is the need for networking. I noticed a few of you put that in the chat earlier. You're 100% correct. You may have heard the statistic before, but 6 out of every 10 jobs in Sweden require networking or connections to be able to get. That's 6 out of every 10 jobs. That's 60% of jobs that are essentially taken away from you. Because as a student to the country, as somebody who's just looking for your first job, 60% of jobs are not available because you don't have that network, and everybody understands that you don't. But we're going to be discussing different tips and tricks that you can use so that you can start developing that network. But keep that in mind. 60% are gone. Only 40% of jobs now are available to you, and that might be a mix of Swedish and English. Visa issues. Somebody brought that up in the chat as well, and you're 100% correct. There are limitations to your visa depending on what status you have. I'm not going to get into visa discussions today. I think there might be, a few people in the chat who might be able to help you with that, but I'm going to try to stay away from a visa discussion. But we all know what those limitations are, and we know that it can be difficult. And then somebody pointed this out as well when they wrote ethnicity. Unfortunately, that's true in Sweden. It's true in many countries. It's especially strong in Sweden. There are studies, unfortunately, that do prove that there's bias and discrimination in the hiring process. That's why organizations like ours, like New to Sweden, and there's lots of organizations like ours who are trying to make a difference and are speaking to lots of different employers to eliminate those structural barriers that exist in the hiring process. But all the stuff I'm going to talk about today is a way to sort of beat the system. So I think it will still be useful for you. So whenever I speak to any sort of group, I sort of take I try to take a look at how to create a job, like a career profile based on probability. So right now, let's say you start around 60%. If you do some little tip that we give you today, you might improve your chances by 3%. You might improve your chances by another 5%. You might increase your chances by 10%, depending on what that tip is and what you do. But it's really important to try to do each of those little steps to improve your probability. So you're going from 60% to 64%, 65, 66. You want to get up to 80% so that you have a really good chance to get that job. So we're going to just touch that surface today with a lot of the tips that we're going to give. But you can also do lots of other things on your own time that's going to be able to help you. So we're going to talk about all those things today. And to get us started on that, one of these things is super important, is to understand how a recruiter thinks. And that's going to improve your probability, believe it or not. It's really important to know how things work from an employer perspective, how things work from a recruiter perspective. So I'm going to ask you this question, and in the chat, if you can just quickly tell me, how long does a recruiter take to go through a CV? Do you think it takes a few minutes? Is it a few seconds? $20 seconds, 10 seconds, 1 minute, 20 seconds, 5 minutes, 7 seconds. I'm going to stop you right there because somebody got it right on the nose. It's 7 seconds. So when I used to be a recruiter, pretend I have a mouse in my hand, and every time I click, I'm flipping through a new CV. So this used to be me. Click, 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 scroll, 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 click. That's how fast it goes. A recruiter's eyes are sort of trained, especially once you've done it for a little while. Your eyes are trained to go through a CV super fast. And so it takes you just literally a few seconds to think whether or not this might be a fit for your organization or not. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another is to keep in mind how many applications a recruiter actually has to go through. And there are lots of different numbers thrown out there. There's an official number of average about 300, but it can literally be in the thousands. So for this, it's really important to think about how large the company is, how large the country is that you're applying in as well. A country like Sweden is relatively small. There's only about 10 million people. So the companies aren't super huge, at least not nationally. Maybe globally they are, but not nationally. They don't have a huge head offices here. So, the applications are not so bad. But if you apply to, a company like Ericsson, you're competing literally against thousands of other people depending on the position that you're applying for. So one of the first tips that I can give you is to apply to startups, apply to smaller companies and smaller organizations, because you'll have a much better chance, because they might only receive 50 applications to 100 applications. So all of a sudden you're competing against 50 to 100 other people. You're literally not competing against thousands of people. And that's important to keep in mind. So today we're going to focus on how to get a recruiter's attention with some of our tips. We're also going to be talking about generalized tips on how to find work in Sweden. So we're going to mix the two together today. So one of the first concrete tips that I can give you is to add your target job title under your name on your CV. So this is super important. I'm going to show you an example down below here. This is our friend George, and George works in sales and administration. So if I'm a recruiter and I'm looking for somebody who's working, like a sales position, I'm looking for a salesperson, and I'm scrolling through all these hundreds of CVs, guess whose CV I'm going to stop at? As soon as I start seeing the name and sales and administration, boom, you added yourself a few more seconds of the recruiter's attention. You increased your probability a little bit higher. And then that recruiter is going to scroll down and start reading through your CV, because they see that it's relevant. They see that it's important to them that, okay, this person worked in sales. It says that they work in sales. And now I'm going to check out that CV. So I understand as students, you may not have that work experience, but you can still put the target job title up there. So you can still put that, okay, I'm looking to become an astronomer. So it's going to say George Cleary, astronomer. And then all of a sudden, if you're looking for, I don't know why I chose astronomer. If you're looking for a job as an astronomer, then you're going to be able to, the recruiter's automatically going to fixate and gravitate to your name and to your CV and start reading it. The other question we get quite often, especially from students, is that they're concerned of how to structure their CV. And with this, I always just say, lead with your strengths. So for almost every single student, your strength is your education. So when you think about your CV, you want to drop your educational experience right at the top. So, you're going to Stockholm University and you're studying this, then that's your strength, because you don't have a lot of work experience to lean on. You want to lead with your strengths, because a recruiter's eyes is going to start at the top and start going their way down. And so they're automatically going to go, okay, this person is studying marketing. I'm looking for a junior marketing position person. I'm going to start looking through this person's CV and see whether or not it's a fit. And that's going to help you. If you, for some reason, have a strong professional background and, your education is not as strong, then you lead with your professional background. You lead with your professional experience. Your education goes towards the bottom of your CV. So just lead with your strength. And think about this constantly during your whole job search process. That's important to keep in mind, and particularly on your CV. If you include a photo, make sure it's a good one. And I'm going to show you something really embarrassing in a slide in a few seconds here. But I do want to tell you that in Sweden, it's optional to have a photo or to not have a photo on your CV. It's purely your choice, but it's important to remember how powerful a tool LinkedIn is. And on LinkedIn, you almost have no choice. You kind of have to put a photo on your LinkedIn profile. So no matter what you do, if you have a photo, make sure it's a good one. And keep these two words in mind. I always stress this. I think it's really important. But make sure whatever you do in life, especially when you're job seeking, is to be professional and be friendly. So keep those two qualities in mind when you're taking your photo as well. And I'm going to show you that embarrassing thing right now. So this is me. This is me on a bad day, and I took a photo of myself. And let's pretend I added to a CV. I want you to tell me in the comments what you think is bad about this photo. Why is this not a good photo for a CV or for a LinkedIn profile? And you can be honest. I will not take any sort of offense. I have no way to trace who you are. So you can tell me whatever it is, and I'll be fine with it. Can anyone say unfriendly? Yeah. I look too serious. I don't look professional. Good one. The quality is bad and I'm not smiling. You're exactly correct. My expression shows anger, conflict. Ooh, this is okay. Now it's getting serious. So I'm going to stop. But you're all 100% correct. So good stuff. I'm going to show you this. And this is me, like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. But can you see the difference? So if you pretend you're a recruiter and pretend these were two different people and you saw one CV or one LinkedIn profile that had sort of like a passport type photo, or you had this other photo, who are you more likely to hire? Who are you more likely to think, oh, this person might be a team player. This person might be someone who fits on our team. I'm going to assume you're all saying this one, and you're 100% correct. This number two, or the one on the right, is someone you want to work with. And that's important to get across when you take a photo. I've seen this. It's a classic mistake, but too many people, of course, it's not as bad as my photo, but they're very serious expressions or very serious poses. It almost looks like a passport photo. And to be honest, it makes an effect. Recruiters are human. Hiring managers are human. And when they take a look at that, they may not get the best impression. If you have a nice photo that's professionally taken, use it, and it's going to help you. It's going to increase those percentage points even more. Number 5, you want to think about keywords. I'm not sure if all of you know what an ATS is, but an ATS is an applicant tracking system. And they're going to be able to, it's sort of like when you apply through a web portal and you put in your application, it goes through an ATS. A really popular one here in Sweden is Team Tailor. It's a Swedish company. And they have, so every time you look for a word, you're going to see something at the bottom on the job application screen. It's going to say powered by Team Tailor. And then it's going to go through this ATS. And it's going to screen your CV automatically. And then it's going to rank your CV against other applications. And one of the things they look at are keywords. So you want to make sure your CV is populated with the same words that's probably going to be on that job description, because they're going to try to match those two together. So what you want to do, a really good exercise, is to go through about 5 different job descriptions. And they don't have to be current. They could be old job descriptions. That's okay. But you want to look at all the keywords that appear on these job descriptions. And then you just want to copy and paste it into, like, there's word cloud, the tools that you can use, and then see which words come up the most often. If you see the word project manager come up the most often and you want to be a project manager, then you know to use that keyword on your CV. You know to use it as your target job title, because that's how people are going to find you. So it's really important to keep that in mind and then use those words. But also remember that you don't want to go too far the other way. Let's say you're looking to be a Java developer. You don't want to have on your CV, you don't want it to say Java, 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 because guess what? It's not going to read well. People are going to think it's really strange, and your CV is going to be tossed aside. So just remember to use useful examples of when you use that application before, and it could be in schoolwork, and then put that on your CV, but it shows up as the keyword, and it'll help you have a better chance of getting that job. All right. And then you want to network. You want to network as much as you possibly can. Remember what I said earlier about 6 out of every 10 jobs in Sweden? And that was through a study. 6 out of every 10 jobs in Sweden are found through networking and personal connections. That's a lot. So for you to be able to sort of beat that system, you're going to need to start networking as much as you possibly can. And I think, a lot of you have some good ideas of where to network. You can network at a job fair, you can network in school, you can network at basically anywhere you can go. There's networking events, specific networking events that you can go to. But what I really tell everybody to do is to remember that you can network everywhere. There's not a single place that you can't network. Maybe when you're buying groceries or something like that. That's the only place I would imagine, okay, maybe you're not going to be chatting or talking to people. But almost everywhere else, if you're at a park, you can network with other people who are there. Even right now, in the chat right now, you can start networking with other people, get to know people. And that's what's really important. You want to be able to build these long-lasting relationships that may one day help you get that career opportunity. So even if you didn't start your studies yet or you're studying right now, it's still important to start creating this network, because as soon as you finish studying, you're going to need that network. You're going to depend on that network to be able to find work in Sweden. So you want to get this started as soon as you can. Another mistake that I see quite often is your people's introductions when they're networking with people. So if you go up to, like, you're in a job fair and you go up to a booth and you just want to start talking to them, a lot of people make this mistake, and it's natural and it's okay, but they make the mistake of just talking too much. So they go up to you, pretend I'm working at the job fair, and somebody comes up to me and they're like, hi, my name is Steve, and I really wanted to find work here in Sweden because I was a student and I was studying at Stockholm University, and now I'm doing this and I'm thinking of doing that a little bit later. So maybe I can do that. What do you think? I need some help, then whatever. And it can go on for like 1 minute or 90 seconds or something. And that's a long time. So it's really important when you network with people is just to make it a conversation. Just start talking to people, and it sounds so simple, but it's true. Just start with hi, or in Sweden, hey. So like, hey, how's it going? Oh, great. Yeah. Also, your organization, it's based up north in Skellefteå or Umeå. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's great, because I'm thinking of relocating there. Perfect. That's what they want to hear. That's what you just said. All of a sudden, you're starting this conversation together, and then you can have a proper networking opportunity. Something else is that most of the time when you're networking, you need to make sure that you grab someone's LinkedIn address. I know as students, not everybody has a LinkedIn profile yet, but please trust me you have to build one, and you have to build one now. So Sweden has actually one of the highest LinkedIn usage rates in the world. It's somewhere between 4 to 5 million people. And considering there's only 10 million people in Sweden, that's a lot of people. And especially when you think about the workforce, that's a huge chunk of people. And the majority of recruiters, I think the latest study said 98% of recruiters and hiring managers will look at your LinkedIn profile. Even when you apply with like a normal CV application through their portal, they will look at your LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is completely up to date. So one of the main things that can come out of those networking opportunities I talked about on the slide earlier is this chance to connect on LinkedIn afterwards. There's not a lot you can do when you're networking, right? There's not so much. They're not going to give you a job like right then and there. It's never going to happen. But what they will do is like, hey, are you on LinkedIn? Yes, I am. Do you want to connect? Sure. And you connect on LinkedIn, and then you can follow that conversation up 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a month later. Whenever you're ready, you can always come back to that person and say, hey, remember we met at this event? I was wondering, would you like to have a digital fika? I'd just love to pick your mind on this particular industry. And that's really useful for you as students as well. You want to be able to connect with as many people as you can in the industry that you're in. So if you're studying to become an accountant, start networking with others, start connecting to other people, other accountants here in Sweden. And they don't have to be Swedish either. Sometimes the person with the international background, the person who understands what the process is, might be the one who gives you the biggest hand. So connect with absolutely everybody who works within your industry. Try to connect with as many recruiters as you possibly can. Try to connect with as many hiring managers as you possibly can, because it will help you down the road. In fact, we even had a LinkedIn expert come in last week during one of our presentations, and he mentioned as well the way that LinkedIn sort of evaluates how strong an application is. It also depends on how many engagements you've had with that particular company. So even following that company's page on LinkedIn improves your chances of getting the job. And that's through the algorithm. So that's really important to keep in mind. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is all updated and reads really well. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about this later if there's time, but I want to talk about direct URLs and things like that too. But we'll come to that later. So use LinkedIn to your advantage. Connect to the right people and stay visible by staying active on LinkedIn. So this is really good for all the people who are introverts in our society. And there's a lot of us, I think there's like 50%. So don't feel shy on LinkedIn because it's the easiest tool that you can use while still being quite passive. So all you have to do to be active on LinkedIn is to like and react to posts. You don't have to do anything more than that. Because if you like and react somebody's post, guess what? They're probably going to see who liked and reacted to their post. So if they have 50 reactions or 100 reactions or less, they're probably going to go through that list. And if they see your name pop up over and over and over again, guess what? They're going to start having like a soft spot for you. And when you actually have like a conversation with them, it's really going to work to your advantage. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing, if you're feeling a little bit more brave, is you can comment on posts. Just remember to keep it professional, keep it friendly, but comment on as many posts as you can. That's definitely going to help you as well. And then you can create your own posts too. And that is something is super difficult to do. I myself have lots of trouble doing it. I only post like twice a year or something on my own channel. But if you're braver than me, create your own posts. Make sure it's professional. Make sure it's friendly. You can start talking about what you're studying. It doesn't have to be more than that. I had somebody attend one of our courses like a year ago, and she basically was in cybersecurity, and she started just posting about cybersecurity over and over and over again. And she got quite the following on LinkedIn, and now she's sort of seen as a cybersecurity expert here on LinkedIn. And that's amazing. And that's something that you can do as well, even just through studies. You don't need to have professional experience to be an expert. And then you can join groups and online communities. There's lots of those online. So double check on LinkedIn. There's bound to be a group for you that you can join. And there's lots of groups in Sweden as well. So, look for Swedish accountants, look for whatever you can and join those groups. We have one called Working in Sweden. You can check it out. We provide lots of free tips. There's everybody on that channel is a job seeker. So it's a really good place to interact and then get tips from others as well. And then I think we talked about this right at the start, but learn Swedish. This is really important. No matter how you do, even if you get the job working for an English language company, the more Swedish you know, the more it's going to help you. It's going to help you with progression through the company. So if it's an English language company, knowing Swedish is going to help you. In your community, knowing Swedish is going to help you. In a Swedish language company, it's obviously going to help you. So there's no harm in learning the language. Learn it as fast as you can. And there's lots of different things you can do. You can go to SFE, which is the sort of the free school, and check to see if you're eligible. But there's also private courses. There's Språk cafes, which are language cafes that you can attend. Almost 100% of the time, these are free. You can watch TV. Just watch SVT. Or watch different channels. They have Let's Svenska, which is sort of like easy Swedish courses. Take those, or watch those programs in Let's Svenska. Listen to the radio, read books, and practice. As you know, speaking will really make you more of an expert, so practice as much as you can. This is really going to help you no matter what. And this is super important. And I know as students, sometimes you might feel as if you have time to look for work in Sweden. The reality is that you do not. So get started on this process now. Everything we talked about so far, everything that I can possibly preach is really get started on this process. It does take a very long time to find your first job in Sweden. Some studies, going further back, sometimes it's an average of 3-4 years. It can take a long time. So it's hard to say now what the exact average is. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes it takes more. It depends on the person, depends on luck, it depends on the opportunity. But you improve your probability by doing all those things we talked about and by starting now. So you're starting that timeline right now. It's really going to help you. Something else to remember is that hiring in Sweden is seasonal. So that's really important. As soon as summer hits, nothing's happening. So January, you basically have January to May, and then you have September to December. So remember that. It's really important to keep that in mind. It might start a little bit earlier in August. You might see some opportunities. No one's saying that there's not, but the averages go down dramatically during the summer months. So you want to make sure you apply earlier on. So apply now. If you're looking for work, apply now before June hits. And then apply again starting in August all the way down to Christmas, because then there's another shutdown. We're almost done, guys. So you really want to build your experience as much as you possibly can. And this is really important to do as a student. So it's never too early to get started. And many companies value experience over education. So start building your experience while you are studying. So there are different ways you can do that. You can volunteer. You can engage in campus activities. You can find part-time work. You can find an internship. You can find a mentorship or find a mentor to help you and guide you. Start networking, as we talked about, and you can start practicing Swedish. These are all things that you can do to build up your job profile. Every single one of these things that you do here will increase that percentage dramatically. So if you can volunteer. We had so many volunteers even at New to Sweden, and it really helps them find work afterwards. You can, working in the school, engaging in different campus activities, that's going to help you. Getting that Swedish experience on your CV is going to help you a lot. So try to do that as much as you possibly can. Mentorship programs work, and really start networking and learning Swedish as well. And of course, internship is the key to being able to find work here in Sweden. There's lots of different organizations that you can check out that can help you. So remember to check out every single useful organization and use them. I remember there was one time I did a workshop, and somebody in the audience, she mentioned that she basically participated in every single organization. She got multiple mentorships, multiple friendships, multiple internships. She just exploited it as much as she possibly could, but it really improved her chances. And I would advise you to do the exact same thing. So there are different programs all over Sweden. There's ours and New to Sweden. There's Mitt Liv, which is a mentorship program. Nämmer Problema has a mentorship program. Kompis Sverige has a Kompis program, but that's a great way to learn Swedish. So you get contact with somebody else who's native Swede, and then you're able to speak with them, and you'll be able to practice your Swedish. Nya Kompis-byrån, very similar program to Kompis Sverige, same idea. Mentor Sverige, Jobbsprånget, that's the internship program, and IBM Skills Builds. You can upskill yourself during this time too, and that's really important too. So IBM Skills Build is free. So upskill yourself as much as you possibly can, and it's only going to help you. And there's lots of different upskilling programs out there as well. And then I'm just going to end with this. This is something that we offer as part of New Sweden. You can get free Udemy courses. I don't know if you know what Udemy is, but basically they have thousands of courses available to you from absolutely everything, like architecture and design to mathematics, to project management, to even how to find work. There's lots of different courses that you can take. And we have sort of access to 6 free months. So you get 6 months of access to Udemy, and there's no catch. After the 6 months, it just ends. You're not on the hook for anything. So use it. It's literally thousands of crowns in savings. And you can do that by going to that link that you see here on the screen. So you go to newtosweden.org/ready to work, and it's part of our Ready to Work program. So if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see something for Udemy. You just go into Udemy, you build an account, and then you mark one of our activities complete. It's just one question, I think. You mark it complete, and then you get access to Udemy for 6 months. So it's really useful. Go ahead, grab it, and use it, because again, you're improving your probability that you'll be able to find work. So that's something that we can offer. And then that's it for today. I have no idea what was happening in the chat. It was going by so fast. But I do want to ask all of you to follow us. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Udemy Sweden. You can follow us on our Working in Sweden page, and you can connect with me. You can find me, Greg Fernando. I think I might be one of the few or only Greg Fernandos on LinkedIn. Just type in my name, and I'm sure you'll be able to find me.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg, for this wonderful presentation. So we have a little bit time left. I'm not sure how much time you have. If you want to extend the Q&A, maybe 5 minutes, Greg, is that
I
fine?
can definitely do that. I realized how over time I went. So yes, definitely do that.
No worries. So we're going to be opening up for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions for Greg, please type them in the chat right now, and we will bring them up on screen and answer them for you. And also, don't forget to follow Study in Sweden on social media. And you can visit our website as well, Study in Sweden. This summer, we're actually having alumni taking over on our Instagram and talking about their experience of studying in Sweden and living and working in Sweden after studies. So be sure to don't miss that out. So yeah, okay, let's continue with some questions. Do we have any good questions?
I can see a couple. So the first one, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where should we look for jobs? LinkedIn doesn't seem to work out well. LinkedIn is actually a really good place to look for jobs. That's definitely one. But there's also Arbets Förmedlingen. I can't pronounce that right, Frederick. You can redo that for me. But Platsbanken, it's basically their website where all their jobs are located. That's another place that you can go. And then there's Indeed and lots of other job boards that you can check. But LinkedIn, I would say, is sort of a massive one, along with Platsbanken.
Yeah. Yeah, LinkedIn is very big here in Sweden, and yeah, it's great tips on your presentation. I didn't know that it was such a huge thing here in Sweden, but that's very interesting.
Thanks.
See.
Yeah, sorry, there were so many good questions here. Should I grab one, or is somebody...
if you want to grab one, we can.
Yeah, let me see. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we got one question here that is pretty frequent. So how much Swedish do you need to know to actually work in Sweden?
The unfortunate response is that it really helps to know a lot of Swedish. There are lots of jobs. Well, there are quite a few jobs available solely in English, and you can definitely find those. And definitely, if you look at international companies, that's where you have the greatest chance of finding English-speaking roles. But the more Swedish you know, the more it's going to help. And even at an international company, if they're looking at like a domestic customer audience, they might still require Swedish as a language to be able to, of course, reach Swedes. So it's important to keep that in mind when looking for work. The only good advice I can give you on that is to really improve your Swedish as much as you possibly can, because even if you know it at a not so great level, it's still going to help you more than not knowing it at all. So definitely learn as much Swedish as you can.
Yeah, and there's lots of great like free resources of learning Swedish, like you said in your presentation, SFI, Swedish for Immigrants. It's a very good example. So we got a new question here on screen. How to find out where job fairs are happening? Do you know?
Yeah, so for sure. So, I mean, LinkedIn is a good place, right? There's always going to be ads going up. But another good one is just Eventbrite. Most of them might be up on Eventbrite somewhere. And Google searches, to be honest. Like, as long as you're paying attention and are capable of doing that Google search, and I understand, like, unless it hits you, you may not try to do it. But just do a Google search in your area. But definitely Eventbrite. Almost every single job fair that I know of puts themselves up on Eventbrite as well.
Great. Let's see if we got another question. Yes. Are there extra courses I should take to match the demand on the job market?
It depends what you're studying. I mean, obviously there are some vacancies in certain industries here in Sweden. Everyone knows about IT and engineering and things like that. So very high demand positions. Unfortunately, there's lots of low demand, or sorry, I don't know what to call it, but like more entry level positions available as well. If you work in hospitality and things like that, there are positions available. But if you're looking for something with a university education, then definitely go for things that are IT related, and you'll probably be safer. Or technical, any sort of technical position. If you're a doctor, of course, those types of things are going to help you.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see if we have another question from the chat. In which sectors is it easiest to find a job?
Yeah, we kind of just answered that a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Unfortunately, hospitality a little bit. So like that's one of those sectors, but definitely something IT based, I think, as well. And there's a huge video game industry here in Sweden as well. So
Yeah.
that type of thing can really help you.
Yeah. Okay. Serena Nikoi, question: any advice how to find entry positions?
Yeah, definitely job fairs are kind of the way to go or that's one way to do it because job fairs tend to have entry level positions. It depends also what type of entry level position you're looking for. If you're looking for a job in retail or in hospitality, like I was saying, or in some sort of nursing or restaurant position, that type of thing, those are job fairs. Then you can go to job fairs; they're almost always there, and they're always looking for new people and new talent. If you're looking for an entry level position in a corporate sense, like working at a company that's international, perhaps, LinkedIn. Connect on LinkedIn to as many people as you can. Pay attention to when those jobs come out. Look for positions that specifically say junior, and then aim for those.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of universities here in Sweden also like host job fairs, so that's a great place to be because obviously they are searching for junior positions if they're going to be at a university. So
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's perfect, Frederick.
let's see. Okay, we got a new question from. Oh, it went out on off screen. Let's see if we can get it back up. No.
I
Okay.
see one in the chat. Would you recommend to work at a personal service provider? Do you mean like an agency? If you mean like a recruiting agency, I would say yes, go for it. And there are some recruiting agencies that work specifically with people with international backgrounds. Maybe I don't know if I should name them on screen because they're private companies, but there are lots that you can reach out to. How's the job market for part-time IT jobs? It's good. You have a better chance with that type of position than you do with certain others. I can't say specifically part-time compared to full-time permanent, but definitely, gig work in that way, like temporary employment is one way for companies to save money. And so you might be able to get something like that in temporary position for sure.
Great. Let's try to take one last questions before we wrap it up here. Time is running out. So, okay, the last question. How do you start looking for a job after graduating?
So maybe I'll change that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Start looking before graduating. So start looking
Yeah.
now, please do. I'm completely serious. So start looking for work right now, even if you have 1 or 2 years left. Still start your process now. And by that I mean like it doesn't mean like you're applying to every single job. Of course, it doesn't mean that necessarily, but it means preparing yourself to be able to look for work later. So start networking now. Start connecting to people now. Start having conversations with people now, so that when you do graduate, it's going to be so much easier for you to transition to that job seeking mode. And start writing your CV and start having people look over it to double check it for grammar. Do all those things. Create a proper LinkedIn profile, and start going to job fairs and start doing all that stuff now and before you start graduating.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much again, Greg, on your presentation and that you can come on here and answer some of the questions. I know it's very appreciated. And this live stream is recorded as well, so it will be available on YouTube and Facebook. And yeah, we're just gonna wrap it up here. So please follow Greg on the social medias he presented earlier. Please follow Study in Sweden for more info, tips, tricks, and insights from Sweden students, international students in Sweden. And yeah, we're gonna sign off here. So thank you again, Greg, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Frederick.